The day started like any other, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was off. The sun was peeking through the blinds, casting its soft golden glow across the room, and yet I felt strangely hollow. It was my birthday, after all. I had hoped for a day full of laughter, love, and the familiar warmth of family. But as the hours passed, the silence only grew louder. I checked my phone for any messages, hoping that someone, anyone, would wish me a happy birthday. But the screen remained blank, save for a couple of unread emails from work. No text messages. No calls. Not even a Facebook notification. I felt a small pang in my chest, my fingers hovering over my phone as I sat there, staring at the screen. Why had they forgotten? It wasn't like they hadn't remembered before. Every year, my family would gather, sharing a meal, exchanging stories, and celebrating the fact that I was here for another year. This was supposed to be another one of those days. So, why was I sitting alone in my apartment, with nothing but the sound of my own breath to keep me company? Confused, I stared at the phone in my hand for what felt like an eternity before my thumb moved, typing a message I didn't quite know how to phrase. I hesitated, unsure of how to word my feelings, but I settled on something simple. Something honest. Hey, Mom. It's my birthday. Where's everyone? I hit send, staring at the screen as I waited for her reply, a knot tightening in my stomach. I never imagined that the answer I would receive would change everything. I waited. Every second felt like a small eternity as I sat, clutching my phone in my hands, staring at the screen. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. Maybe an apology. Maybe an explanation. But what came next was more than just a reply. It was a message that would turn my world upside down. When my phone finally buzzed, I nearly dropped it in shock. It was from my mom, but her response wasn't what I had expected. I'm sorry. We're not coming. It's for the best. I blinked, the words on the screen blurring as I tried to process what I had just read. It didn't make sense. Why wasn't anyone coming? Why was my family suddenly abandoning me on my birthday? I had always been close to them, or at least I thought I had been. For as long as I could remember, family was everything. Growing up, birthdays were sacred. We'd decorate the house together, laughing and arguing over the smallest details of the party, but always coming together in the end. My mom, dad, and siblings, they were always there, making the day feel special, full of love. It was a tradition that had carried on year after year, and I had grown accustomed to the warmth of their presence, even during the chaotic moments. So, why now? Why today? I quickly typed a reply, my fingers trembling slightly as I tried to steady myself. What do you mean? Why not? Is everything okay? I waited again, my heart pounding in my chest. My mind raced through countless scenarios. Was something wrong with them? Did they not care anymore? Maybe there was some sort of emergency I didn't know about. I told myself to stay calm. But deep down, a feeling of dread had already started to settle in. Minutes passed before I received another message, but this one was different. It wasn't just a simple text. It felt almost distant. Cold, even. You don't need to worry. We've made some decisions as a family, and this is for the best. You'll understand when the time is right. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What did she mean? What decisions? I had no idea what was going on. Was this some sort of family secret? Something I wasn't privy to? A dark feeling crept up my spine as the possibility of something deeper and more sinister began to emerge. My hands felt clammy, and I fought back the tears that were threatening to spill. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. I had always been there for my family. Every birthday, every milestone, I was present. I supported them through their hard times, celebrated their successes. So why wasn't anyone here when I needed them? Why had they decided that today, of all days, was the one to pull away? I stared at the message for a long time, as if willing some hidden truth to reveal itself. But there was nothing more. Just silence. Frustration bubbled up within me, and I found myself typing again. This time, my emotions bled through. Mom, I don't understand. Please, just tell me what's going on. I'm your daughter. Why are you shutting me out? I hit send, hoping for some sort of clarity, a resolution. But there was nothing. No immediate reply. The wait felt endless, each passing minute leaving me more confused than the last. My thoughts churned, swirling in a maelstrom of questions I couldn't answer. Why had they made this decision without me? Had I done something wrong? Had I failed them somehow? Growing up, my relationship with my family had been solid. My mom and I had always been close. She was the one I turned to when I needed advice, when life felt overwhelming. My dad was the rock of the family, the steady presence who always had a solution to every problem. And my siblings, while they were often scattered with their own lives, had always made an effort to be there for one another when it mattered most. But now I was left alone, sitting in a cold, empty room, waiting for an answer that never seemed to come. The silence in my apartment felt suffocating, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play, something that I was completely unaware of. I decided to call my sister. Maybe she could explain. Maybe she knew more than I did. The phone rang, and I held my breath, hoping for some kind of clarity, some semblance of normalcy to return. But when she picked up, her voice sounded distant, almost hesitant. "Hey," she said, but there was no warmth in her voice. No excitement. No acknowledgement of my birthday. It was as if she were a stranger on the other end of the line. "Hi. Is everything okay? Why is no one here?" I tried to sound calm, though my heart was racing. Where is Mom? Why did she say we're not celebrating my birthday today? There was a long pause before she spoke again, her words soft and careful. "You should just let it go. Mom made her decision, and there's no use in questioning it. Maybe it's for the best." For the best? What did that even mean? I felt my chest tighten as my frustration started to boil over. I don't understand. I don't even know what's going on. Why is everyone acting like this? I just wanted to have a normal birthday. Just, trust me, she said, her voice barely audible now. You'll understand soon enough. And just like that, the line went dead. The sound of the dial tone echoed in my ears as the call ended, but it wasn't the ringing that bothered me, it was the crushing weight of unanswered questions. The silence in the room grew more oppressive, each second stretching into an eternity as I processed the conversation. What had just happened? Why were my family members behaving like this? It wasn't like them to suddenly shut me out, especially on my birthday. But their cryptic words, their avoidance, everything felt wrong, like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, about to be pulled into something I couldn't control. I stood up from the couch, pacing the room as my thoughts churned. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms as I tried to keep my emotions in check. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and confusion. I needed answers, real answers, not these vague reassurances that everything would be okay. But how could I get them when no one was willing to tell me the truth? I grabbed my phone again and stared at it for a long moment, the screen still displaying my mother's last message. It was maddening, trying to decipher the meaning behind her words. You'll understand when the time is right. What did that even mean? I couldn't understand. Not yet. But I had to know what was going on. And if they weren't going to tell me, I would have to figure it out myself. Without thinking, I called my dad. Maybe he could explain. He had always been the one with the answers, the logical one, the steady hand. If anyone would know why my family was acting like this, it would be him. It rang for a while before he picked up, his voice groggy and distant. "Hey, kid," he said, his tone strangely absent, like he wasn't really there. "What's up?" "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need you to tell me what's going on. Why isn't anyone here? Why is Mom acting like this? Why did you all decide to skip my birthday? This isn't like you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Too long. I could hear the faint sound of shuffling, the scraping of something being moved. It almost sounded like he was avoiding answering, stalling for time. "Look, sweetheart," he began, his voice heavy with a tiredness I hadn't noticed before. "There's a lot you don't understand right now. And I'm not sure it's the right time to get into it." I felt my stomach drop. "What do you mean? What's going on? You're making it sound like there's some big secret, but I don't know what it is." "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I wish I could tell you more, but it's not something you can handle right now. You'll just have to trust that we're doing what's best." I felt a surge of frustration, my vision blurring with unshed tears. What's best? This isn't best. You're my family, and I've always been there for you. Why aren't you there for me? What did I do wrong? There was silence again, thick and suffocating. I could feel my pulse racing as I waited for him to respond, but instead, he just sighed heavily. Just give it time. Trust me. You'll understand soon enough. The words were like a slap in the face. What did he mean? Give it time. The more he spoke, the more it seemed like they were all hiding something from me. But I didn't know what that something was. Why wouldn't they just tell me? I hung up the phone, the anger bubbling up inside me like a cauldron on the brink of boiling over. I couldn't take it anymore. This cryptic, dismissive attitude, this unwillingness to be honest with me, it was driving me mad. The pain of being left out of whatever this family decision was, coupled with the deep sense of betrayal, made my head spin. I paced around the apartment, the walls closing in on me as I tried to figure out what to do next. The messages from my family weren't just confusing, they were maddening. They were pushing me away when all I wanted was to understand, to connect, to fix whatever had gone wrong. I grabbed my jacket and stormed out of the apartment. I needed to get out. To clear my head. Maybe if I walked around, I could think. I wasn't sure where I was going, but the rhythmic sound of my footsteps as I moved through the streets helped calm the anxiety that was gnawing at me. As I walked, I replayed the conversations over and over in my mind, trying to make sense of them. Something about the situation felt wrong on a deeper level. It wasn't just that my family had missed my birthday, it was that they were deliberately shutting me out, withholding something crucial from me. I wasn't a child anymore. I was an adult, capable of handling whatever it was they were keeping from me. Or so I thought. The city was buzzing with life around me, people laughing, chatting, going about their daily routines, but I felt completely disconnected from it all. I could hear the noise, but it was as though I was walking in a bubble, separated from everything and everyone. I felt like a stranger in my own life, as if the ground beneath me had shifted and I was struggling to keep my balance. Then, just as I reached the edge of the park, my phone buzzed in my pocket again. My heart skipped a beat as I pulled it out, praying that it was one of my family members, ready to explain everything. But it wasn't. It was a text from my mom. I know you're upset, but it's for the best. You'll see. I love you, but some things are just too complicated to explain right now. I stared at the message, a deep frustration welling up inside me. This wasn't love. This was avoidance. This was them shutting me out, treating me like a child who couldn't handle the truth. My emotions surged, a wave of anger crashing over me. But there was something else too. Something that gnawed at me in the back of my mind, a suspicion that I had been ignoring up until now. What if they weren't just protecting me? What if they were hiding something? What if they were protecting themselves? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. It didn't matter what they said anymore. I needed to take control. If they wouldn't tell me the truth, I would find it myself. I started walking again, the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement growing louder in my ears. I didn't know what was waiting for me, but I was determined to uncover whatever secrets my family had buried, no matter what it took. The sun was beginning to set as I made my way through the familiar streets, my mind racing with more questions than I could keep up with. The weight of everything, my family's silence, their cryptic messages, the mounting frustration, pressed down on me like an invisible force. The further I walked, the more determined I became. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers. It was then that I saw her, my mom, standing at the entrance of our childhood home. Her face was drawn, a look of sadness and regret clouding her features. I froze in my tracks, the realization hitting me like a ton of bricks. She had been avoiding me for a reason. But what? I walked up slowly, the unease in my chest growing heavier with each step. When she saw me, her eyes softened for a moment, but there was still that hesitation, that same distance I had felt in our previous conversations. Mom, my voice was barely a whisper, choked by the storm of emotions I was struggling to contain. Why? Why did you do this? Why didn't you come today? I thought you'd be here. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she took a deep breath and motioned for me to follow her inside. I obeyed, stepping across the threshold into the home that had once been a place of comfort. Now it felt cold, distant. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence stretching out between us, thick with unspoken words. I felt a gnawing emptiness inside as I waited for her to speak, but she just stared at her hands. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and hesitant. I didn't want to hurt you. I really didn't. But we had to make a decision. She paused, her eyes flickering to mine for the briefest of moments before looking away again. We've been keeping a secret for a long time, and I wasn't sure how to tell you. You were never supposed to find out like this. My heart hammered in my chest as I waited for her to continue. Every word felt like a puzzle piece falling into place, but I still didn't understand the whole picture. What secret? I asked, the desperation creeping into my voice. Mom, please. I just want to know the truth. She swallowed hard, her face crumbling with the weight of whatever she was about to reveal. It's about your father. He hasn't been the man you think he is. We've been covering it up for years, but now it's all come to a head. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, and I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. My father? The man who had always been my rock, the one I turned to when everything else seemed uncertain. What was she saying? He's been involved in something illegal, something that could destroy our family if it came to light. Her voice cracked, the emotion overwhelming her. We didn't want you to know, didn't want you to carry the burden of it. So we made a choice. We cut ties with him. For your sake. I couldn't breathe. The weight of her words hit me like a freight train, and I struggled to process them. No, this can't be true. It doesn't make sense. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why not include me in the decision? She met my eyes then, her gaze full of regret and sorrow. I wanted to protect you. We all did. But now you know, and I can't take it back. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. My head was spinning, a whirlwind of emotions crashing through me, anger, betrayal, confusion. My father, the man I had looked up to for so long, was a part of something dark. And my family had chosen to keep me in the dark about it. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? I shouted, my voice cracking with the force of the emotions threatening to break free. Why couldn't you trust me? Her eyes filled with tears as she stood up, walking towards me. She placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch heavy with the weight of years of secrets. I didn't want to hurt you, honey. I thought I could shield you from it all. But the truth is, you're stronger than I gave you credit for. You deserve to know everything, even if it tears us apart. For the first time in hours, the knot in my chest loosened, but it wasn't because I felt any relief. It was because the storm inside me had finally found its release. My family had made choices they thought were best, but in doing so, they had torn a part of me away. The lies, the deception, it had all built up to this moment. And now I had to decide what to do with this newfound truth. I need to process this, I said softly, stepping back from her touch. I need some time. I don't know what to do with any of this right now. She nodded, her face etched with sadness and resignation. I understand. Take all the time you need. I walked out of the kitchen, the weight of everything hanging over me like a suffocating cloud. My mind raced, my thoughts scattered in a million directions. The family I had known, the love and security I had relied on, had it all been a lie? And what now? What came next in the wake of all these revelations? The truth had finally come to light, but it had come at a cost. And as I stood in the doorway of my childhood home, I realized that the journey ahead wouldn't be an easy one. But it was my journey, and I had no choice but to face it head-on. I walked away from the house slowly, the words my mom had spoken still echoing in my ears. The revelation about my father, the secret he had been hiding for years, and the choices my family had made to protect me, everything felt surreal. It was as if the ground beneath me had shifted, and I was now walking through a world that didn't quite make sense. My mind was in overdrive, processing the overwhelming truth. But despite the chaos inside me, one thing was clear: I couldn't just let things stay as they were. The weight of the secret felt suffocating. My family, who had always been my foundation, had just torn a piece of that foundation away. I wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Could I still trust them? Could I still look at my father the same way? Was this betrayal something I could forgive? The walk back to my apartment felt like it took hours, my thoughts spinning in every direction. The world around me seemed unchanged. People went on with their lives. The sun dipped lower in the sky, but inside, I was in turmoil. I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just fractured into pieces, and I was standing in the rubble, unsure of how to rebuild. When I got back to my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, my phone still gripped tightly in my hand. My mom had sent me another text while I was walking, an apology, a plea for understanding. But I wasn't ready to read it. I wasn't sure I was ready to face her or any of them yet. I knew that I needed time. Time to process everything, to understand how I felt about the secrets they had kept, and what my next steps should be. But above all, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to let the choices of my family dictate how I moved forward. In the days that followed, I took a step back. I didn't respond to any of my family's messages right away. I needed to create space, to give myself the breathing room to think. For once, I wasn't going to rush into fixing everything. I needed to figure out what I wanted, not what they thought was best for me. I spent hours sitting in the quiet of my apartment, reflecting. The anger and hurt had started to settle, but in its place was a sense of clarity. I realized that, while I couldn't erase the pain they had caused me, I also couldn't let it consume me. I wasn't the same person I had been before. I had been forced to confront a truth I wasn't prepared for, but in doing so, I had also found a new sense of strength. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the messages from my mom. Her words were full of regret, of hope that I would understand in time. And maybe, eventually, I would. But not today. Today, I needed to take the first step toward healing on my own terms. I sent her a message, my fingers moving slowly over the screen as I carefully chose my words. I need some time, Mom. But I will talk to you soon. I just need space to process everything. Please understand. I set the phone down and sat back, feeling the weight of the past few days lift, just a little. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time since this all began, I felt like I was in control. I didn't have to have all the answers right away. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. The truth had shaken me to my core, but it had also given me a new perspective. I was no longer the person who was defined by my family's decisions. I was someone who could face the truth, no matter how painful, and move forward with my own choices. I wasn't sure what that would look like yet, but I knew that I was ready to find out. The pain, the betrayal, it would take time to heal, but I wasn't going to let it consume me. I would rebuild, piece by piece. And maybe one day, my family and I would find our way back to each other. But until then, I was learning to live for myself. In the end, the truth hadn't shattered me, it had freed me. And now, I was ready to embrace the future, no matter how uncertain it was. A week had passed since that fateful day, and as I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The anger that had once clouded my thoughts had faded, replaced by something else, something more profound. I wasn't whole yet, but I was starting to rebuild, starting to understand that some things, no matter how painful, needed to be faced head-on, no matter the cost. The truth had changed everything, but in a way, it had also set me free. I wasn't just the person my family wanted me to be anymore. I wasn't defined by the decisions they had made for me. I had learned to take control of my own life, to carve out a path for myself in the wake of their choices. I took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill my lungs. There was still uncertainty ahead, still so much left to figure out, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready. The past couldn't be undone, but it didn't have to define me. I was stronger now, more independent, and more determined to create my own future. I picked up my phone and sent one final message to my family. I'm not sure where we go from here, but I'm willing to figure it out when the time comes. I need space, but I'll be here when I'm ready. As I hit send, I felt a small sense of closure. The journey ahead was still unclear, but I was no longer afraid. The world was mine to navigate, and I was ready to face whatever came next, with or without the past.